Morning, friends. A little different twist on content creation this morning as we are watching along live with the UFC Mexico City weigh-ins. And we've already had a number of fighters make their way to the scales in the first few minutes of weigh-ins, which began at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. Now, this card kicks off tomorrow night at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern, and you have, I believe, 13 fights here. So should be a long night of fights, a great night of fights, action-packed night of fights with the lowest weight class for us scheduled to be at, the heaviest weight class slated to be lightweight. So we've got fighters who weigh between 125 pounds all the way up to 155 pounds tomorrow evening in Mexico City. The coffee's flowing this morning. First fighter to the scale was Brandon Moreno. He came in at 126 pounds. Looked like he put in a lot of work to get there, but to be the first fighter to the scale and make the weight says something. And now, as I mentioned, it's 10 a.m. here, and the fights don't kick off until 7 p.m. tomorrow night. So these fighters have a lot of time to pack some extra pounds on during the rehydration process. So let's walk through the first fight of the night, where we had Muhammad Naimov, who came in at 146 pounds, and Eric Silva also came to the scales at 146 pounds. Right now, there's a little break in the action, so I'll get everybody caught up to speed and what I saw on the scales. We saw Victor Altamirano. He came in at 125 pounds. Felipe Dos Santos came in at 124 pounds. I was surprised to see Felipe Dos Santos come in under at 124 pounds. Looked great on the scales. Claudio Puelles came in at 156 pounds. We're still waiting on a number of fighters. I'll let you know which fighters those are in a quick minute here. Mateus Madonka, 126 pounds. That was a surprise for me as well. I thought that he would show up possibly overweight for this fight, but he looked solid. Jesus Aguilar was doing cartwheels off of the scale, 126 pounds for a very diminutive fighter out there. Then we had, let's see, Christian Quinones, 136 pounds. Leone Barcelos made it to the scales, 36 or so, 37 years of age, looked solid out there. No massive concerns yet, but the weigh-ins are young. A lot of these fighters made it to the scale extremely fast. Manny Torres, 155 pounds. He was somebody I was concerned about. Looked great on the scales. Chris Duncan had a little Spanish speech for the crowd who was in attendance. Came in at 156 pounds. And you go up and down this weigh-in so far. Sam Hughes came in at 115 pounds. Looked great on the scales. Jasmine Yaugari, 115 pounds. Looked great. And then we have one of the co-main event of the evening fighters, Brian Ortega, who put some questions to bed, came in at 146 pounds. And we are still waiting on, let me just take a gulp of this fresh coffee that was just brewed up a few minutes ago. And then I will let you know who we are waiting on. Let's see, we've got a few comments here in the comments section. Good morning, Professor Chaos. Great to have you here as we are marching towards victory. So let's get you caught up to speed regarding who we are waiting on for these weigh-ins. Bear with me here. Let's see. Here we go. So right now, we are waiting on Brandon Royval, who, that's no surprise, this is a fighter who was supposed to be a backup fighter and got tossed into this main event against Brandon Moreno. We are waiting on Yair Rodriguez. We are waiting on Daniel Zellhuber, as well as Francisco Prado. We're waiting on Raul Rosas Jr. We are waiting on Ricky Tercios. We are also waiting on Edgar Chairez, who in previous weigh-ins, he's appeared to struggle to the scale. I can vouch for that. I've seen that multiple times. We're also waiting on Danny Lacerda. We are waiting on Fares Ziam. We are also waiting on Luis Rodriguez and Dennis Bondar. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fighters to hit the scale, and what should be an awesome event. Looking forward to these matchups. I can't wait for this one, man. This is going to be spectacular. So let's see what we got here. Let's get things back in action here. The scale is shaken. Let's see. If anyone has any questions, please post them in the comment section here. Looks like the last fighter to step on the scale was Jesus. Let's see. Jesus Aguilar was the last fighter to the scale, and that was almost 8 minutes ago. So there's been a bit of a break in the action here. Now, sometimes fighters will roll to the venue in separate caravans, and that may be the reason for a wait for fighters to get to the scale, no pun intended, to weigh in. By the way, how do you make a tissue dance? You put a little boogie in it. That is the joke of the morning, my brothers. Let's see. How do Raoni Barcelos look? He looked great. He was chewing some gum as he stood on the scales. And good morning to you. Yeah, Raoni Barcelos did not look like he was that he overexerted himself in the lead up to this weigh-in. So grab some coffee, sit down, enjoy this weigh-in with me. And if you have any comments or questions in the chat, feel free to put them up there and I'll share those with you and we'll address them on air. In the meantime, though, just take a brief look at this fight. No, Lacerda and Chairez have not weighed in, by the way. Can you imagine if that fight gets pulled one more time? And maybe destiny. It may just not be meant to be. Let's see. Here's a good one. Can Henry Corrales upset Aaron Pico for a second time this weekend? That is a great question. Now, that initial fight took place, I believe, 4 or 5 years ago, and you had Aaron Pico, who is much, much younger now. Now he's 27 years of age. He was thrown to the wolves early, taking on a grizzled veteran against Henry Corrales, and he was having his moments early, but you saw a complete disregard in the striking defense realm for Aaron Pico, and he put Henry Corrales on skates in that fight, and then wasn't fearful of what was coming back at him, didn't pay it any mind to it, got caught, got put out, and it's funny how things work. This is a short notice replacement for Aaron Pico. An opponent who's coming in on short notice, that is Henry Corrales. And Corrales, tough as nails, going to fight hard for your money. But Corrales, 37 years of age. This is the PFL versus Bellator championships that we're talking about here. I believe it takes place in Saudi Arabia. So in this spot, I think this is a beautiful opportunity for Aaron Pico to get back on track, to right a wrong that took place earlier in his career. I did see Pico opened as a massive favorite, but that line has closed. And makes sense to a certain degree, but also you have to look at the trajectory of these two fighters' careers. And I think this is a get back spot for Aaron Pico. Um, the short notice and age is going to hurt Corrales. I tend to agree with you there. Good morning. Hope you're doing well this morning as well. Great to see you, Bill. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get back to the weigh-ins here. It looks like we haven't had any additional fighters come to the scale yet. There's a significant gap in action. Hopefully, the hot tubs have been put to use down in Mexico City, and the saunas have been put to use. And there are plenty of towels there to get these fighters dried off and ready to embark upon the mission that is making weight. That's the first battle of the scale. Now, I've been to many mixed martial arts events. I've been to many weigh-in events through the years. My first weigh-in event I attended was Pride 33, where it's funny, they didn't have the same security that they do these days. So I was able to run into Nick Diaz while he was cutting weight, and many others. Waleed was there. Mauricio Shogun, who while he was cutting weight, the Shooter Box crew, and through the years, I've seen a lot of fighters during the rehydration process as well. UFC Long Island a number of years ago, Gian Vellante, as he was gaining weight, I rehydrating. It's interesting. They had literally gallons and gallons of water. They were just chugging immediately after the weigh-ins, and I'm talking 2, 3, 4 gallons of water at in one sitting. Really impressive feat to accomplish something like that. Of course, nowadays, getting the old IV out is not part of the repertoire unless you're Islam Makhachev, according to Dan Hooker. But I have yet to see any evidence to support that. So interesting stuff. So we're continuing to wait here. I've got my eyes on the scales, and I am waiting for the next fighter to weigh in. The scale itself, the weight that controls the scale, is dangling and swaying, but no fighters yet to the scale. So again, let's let you know who we're waiting on right now. We've got Yair Rodriguez we're waiting on, Brandon Royval, Daniel Zellhuber, Francisco Prado, Raul Rosas Jr., Ricky Tercios, Edgar Chairez, Daniel Lacerda, Faraziam, Luis Rodriguez, Dennis Bondar. These are all fighters who have yet to weigh in. So we've got some time here to make things right. And this is a 13-fight card. So I'm hoping that all 13 fights are continuing to stay on the card. Now, you do mention all of the improvements from Aaron Pico, and it's kind of a shame that he was brought in at such a young age, and he had so much hype and pressure behind him. And it's not like he took these humbling experiences that were light experiences. They were brutal knockout losses, submission losses. They're fights that he had been rendered unconscious and looked like those strikes took a significant amount of time off of his life. And he went back to the drawing board, got back on his horse, no pun intended. The young man loves to ride horses, and he made improvements. So good on him. How do you feel about Rosas Tercios? I've seen a lot of people on both sides, despite Rosas being minus 250 at this point. Excellent question. So I think that the control time, it's funny that you're asking a 19-year-old kid to go in there and manhandle a grown man in Ricky Tercios, but Rosas Jr. is the fighter who seems to have not only the grown man body type, but also the strength to ragdoll his opponent. We saw him do it to Christian Rodriguez early, C-Rod, and C-Rod was able to maintain his composure, keep his submission defense up to snuff and turn the tide in that matchup, mainly due to Rosas completely emptying his tank. Now, Tercios, his takedown defense is horrific. He's very spastic in nature, and I think honestly, the way that the UFC matched this fight up, that Tercios has been brought in to lose this fight. Um, you look at Rosas, who they could have matched him up with, and I think it was, who is it, Terrence Mitchell last time out. That was a cakewalk. He's not a striker by any means. He should not be striking Rosas. He should be taking this fight to the mat. And then also, yes, Tercios has yet to be submitted, but also I see Tercios getting controlled for significant amounts of time, and Rosas just trying to implement his will and using that grown man strength, that only 19 years of age, on Ricky Tercios. So I think that Rosas Jr. is going to win the fight, but I understand where folks are coming from, trying to fade the young talent who may be in over his head in the hometown of Mexico City, where he'll be fighting in front of family and friends. So interesting matchup. We're still waiting on a number of fighters to hit the scale. By the way, it says a lot that Brandon Moreno was the first fighter out there. That was something that I liked to see. You always like to see when the main event fighters take the scales first. I always wonder how in the back room, if you have a fighter who, let's say the main event's at flyweight, and then you have a fighter at 170 pounds who decides, yo, I want to be on the scale first. Let me go up there. Or I've been waiting long enough. I got here first. Let me go on the scale first. Like, does the main event fighter, if it's a flyweight or a bantamweight fighter, do they just jump the line and say, hey, I'm the main event, let me hop on that scale first? I'd like to chat with folks and find out what the deal is, how that actually works behind the scenes. Let's see. So we've got some downtime here as we're waiting for the next fighters to take to the scale. If you have any additional comments, feel free to do so. Oh, here we go. We have Faraziem is coming in. Hang on. Let's see. Bear with us. Let's see. The scale is being adjusted. Here we go. I'm going to need my second cup of coffee here this morning. Let's see. All right. Faraziem is coming to the scales. Here we go. Nothing but smiles on the scales. All right. 156. Faraziem going on the list here. So that fight is official. Claudio Puelles and Faraziem. All right, let's go. Now, let's see what we got here. I've got my note-taking abilities. The scale is being adjusted slightly. Interesting. No other fighters have made it. There's a significant gap in the action here. Okay. Let's see. What's your prediction for Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint-Denis? Benoit Saint-Denis taking on Dustin Poirier in Florida. And that matchup should be fireworks early and often. There's no way it can't be fireworks, because Benoit Saint Denis is not going to waste time. He's going to bring the fight right to Dustin Poirier, and I'm looking forward to hearing the boss James Brown walkout song for Dustin Poirier. That is one of my favorites. I mean, he's paid the cost to be the boss. That is one of the lines in that song that I really appreciate. I have a deep appreciation for those lyrics. And you look at Dustin and all of the damage that he's taken. He is getting up there in age. He's a southpaw. He's a great striker. He's got some jiu-jitsu up his sleeve, and he's a dog. He's going to fight hard for your money. You know that. But also, Benoit Saint Denis is an animal out there with a great gas tank. He can push pressure. He can close distance. And it's just a matter of, is Dustin Poirier going to be able to land flush on Benoit Saint Denis as he closes distance and utilize leg kicks here? I don't think he's going to have the space to utilize leg kicks. I think they're going to get right to it. And I actually have Benoit Saint Denis winning that fight. I think that it's going to be a pressure cooker of a pace that's going to be put on by Benoit Saint Denis. I think that the youth. Also, I know the Zaleski dos Santos fight took a lot out of Benoit Saint Denis, but let's be real here. You look at the damage, the Hooker fights, the Gaethje fights, all of the fights that Dustin Poirier has been in. Jim Miller, I was at his leg got chewed up in that matchup. There's so many fights that Dustin Poirier has basically sacrificed himself to the MMA gods to get where he is. He's paid the cost to be the boss, and he's getting paid for it. But I have concerns about the longevity of Dustin Poirier. I think that Benoit Saint Denis is the play there. Let's see. Can Ryan Bader take a punch anymore? Do you see him winning a decision or finish if he is to win? I think he's going to try to go to the grappling. Bader, I think that he's got to. I don't think his chin is what it was, and it was never anything great. I was at Ryan Bader's fight against Anthony Rumble Johnson, rest in peace, and that fight, Ryan Bader he took one shot, wasn't able to successfully land the takedown. You saw a sprawl, and then you saw the brawl of Anthony Rumble Johnson, and he put Bader out real quick. That was, I drove all the way to Newark for that fight, and oh my gosh, Ryan Bader, I know he's made the best of his God-given ability. I mean, this is a closely lined fight, and he's got to go to his wrestling. Bus, you say Benoit looks good too. He's the favorite. Yeah, that is a very closely lined fight. The Benoit Saint Denis Dustin Poirier fight. I think that yes, there's recency bias, but also you have to consider that the Matt Frivola victory. There've been others where Benoit Saint Denis is he's a freight train, man. This guy just goes for it. And he's very talented. And also, you talk about the rehydration process also for Benoit Saint Denis. Very, very impressive. If you want to continue to put comments into the comment section, we'll stick around for the weigh-in here, and appreciate everybody tuning in this morning. One of my goals this year is to start putting out tremendous amounts of content and work together, have a symbiotic relationship where I'm interacting with folks here and sharing nuggets of information and trying to work our magic to beat the bookies and work one fight at a time. So let's see. We've got Henan versus Francis will be an interesting one. Yes, let's see. You say, I think I'll just take one from Henan. He's massive at heavyweight, and Bader's chin's done. He's got knocked out by smaller strikers years prior. Yeah. Oh, 100%. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Friday morning. Let's see. Hope you're having a great Friday morning. By the way, Guy, I appreciate your work. Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives, one of my all-time favorite shows. In fact, I went down to Washington D.C. based on one of those shows of yours, and I watched. I went to a Peruvian restaurant that was featured on that show. My wife and I. It was an incredible eatery. So thank you for your hard work in the kitchen and in restaurants around the country. Appreciate your greatness. So thank you for taking time out of your day to tune in. Let's see. We can talk a bunch of other mixed martial arts. Oh, hang on. Dennis Bondar. Hang on. Dennis Bondar is taking to the scales, my brothers. Let's see what we've got here. We've got breaking news. Breaking news. Let's see. I've got my handy dandy pen and my paper. I'm gonna find a so Bondar's got a beard. 126. He looks like it took a lot out of him on the scales. This guy, wow, he looks emaciated, Dennis Bondar on the scales. Ah, Francisco Prado. Now, I have concerns for Dennis Bondar after seeing that. He looked completely sucked out, and they breezed him through that scale. They didn't even Ratner didn't even push the scale that much. Interesting. Didn't push the 156. Francisco Prado, the youngster, kissing his bicep, giving himself a slap on the chest. And interesting. Wow, that was interesting. Both fighters there when they took to the scales, Ratner didn't even budge the weight. Very, very interesting approach. Huh. Okay. Let's see. Good morning, Monk. Great to please send my regards to Lou. I hope he's doing well. Let's say we'll say if you ever head back to DC, Unconventional Diner is a must visit. The Squid Ink Caesar and burger are both beyond excellent. Hey, you know what? Put that on my list. That's going on my bucket list right now. I'm actually writing that down. Thank you, Guy Fieri, for your excellent recommendation here. Squid Ink Caesar and burger. All right. Appreciate you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let's get back to these weigh-ins. I mentioned Dennis Bondar made weight, but Mark Ratner, the way he pushed the scale, the weight itself, it was not even nudged. He just got up there. I don't even think, how did he know that Bondar was coming up to that scale at 126? Maybe he had a preset for that specific weight. Excellent question. So let's chat some more fights. Get some more questions in the comment section, and we'll chat. In fact, I'm going to grab myself a second cup of coffee right now. So bear with me. Put some questions in the comment section, and we will address those. I'm also keeping my eyes on the scales as we have a live weigh-in watch along here. Here we go. I'm going to get the coffee. Okay. Here we go. Okay. We're still waiting on a number of fighters to take to the scales here. The second cup of coffee is currently being ingested as we speak. And Shamil Gaziev, you bring up an excellent question. Shamil Gaziev is taking on Jair Rosenstreich. And he's coming off of a win over Martin Budai. And we kind of saw the flashes of brilliance from Shamil Gaziev last time out. He is 34 years of age, and I think that the future is bright against a striker here in Jair Rosenstrike. Now, Rosenstrike is a fighter who 35 years of age. We know the kickboxing background, of course. He could come in here and put Gaziev's lights out, but I'm leaning towards the Shamil Gaziev side here in that matchup. I haven't made a play on it yet, and you're saying Gaziev's already getting a main event. Curious to see how he does. I also agree with you there. Excellent question. Excellent question. So we're continuing to wait for more fighters to take to the scales here on this festive Friday morning. As I want to try to, if I have Fridays an hour or so during weigh-ins to go live for these events, I think this is a solid cathartic experience to just share some notes, what we see, especially in preparation for the Fight Morning Breakdown show that I do on Saturday mornings. If we spend time on Fridays and speak about what's actually happening on the scales, we have more time to talk about changing of camps, changing of weight classes, certain nuggets of information that have been gleaned from the week or multiple weeks worth of preparation for each fight card. And you only get that time in experiences like this because during my morning breakdown show, it's a quick card breakdown show. So I try to get all 13 fights and predictions out in 30-40 minutes. That 30 to 40 minutes, that's the goal of that show. And I've been doing that for years. So I'm a creature of habit in that regard, but I also like to push myself out of my comfort zone too. And that's what we're doing here today. Testing the waters here. And we're chatting about some upcoming matchups. We're viewing the live weigh-ins. And we are waiting for a number of fighters to hit these scales. Let's see what we got here. You think he'll probably do well, Gaziev, considering the majority of heavyweights don't know how to grapple very well, and he actually throws combinations. Yeah, you saw his he was very fluid out there when he was fighting, and didn't look like he was robotic and wasting too much energy in that most recent matchup against Budai. It's amazing that he was an underdog in that matchup. Congrats to you if you were able to cash in that regards. We are about 35 minutes or so through weigh-ins, and we are still waiting on a number of fighters here. Let's see what we got. I will share with you who we're waiting on. We're waiting on Edgar Chairez, Daniel Lacerda, Ricky Tercios, Raul Rosas Jr., Yair Rodriguez, Brandon Royval. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 6 fighters, 7 fighters. My count here. Let's see. 1 minute. I am checking out what we have on the board as we're waiting for these fighters to take to the scale. And I'm looking for Christian Rodriguez. I was surprised. He looked solid up there, and so did Barcelos. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, nobody's come to the scale recently. Let's see, we've got an additional comment here. Guy Fieri says it feels wrong that Blades and Alameda, Jailton Almeida, isn't a main card fight for 299. One of the most interesting and higher level fights we've seen recently. Yes, the skill level extremely high in that matchup. Is it going to be the wrestling of Blades or the jiu-jitsu of Jailton Almeida? And what is Almeida going to look like off of his back? Because he'll probably be on his back early and often. And Blades is just, he's somebody who's dropped the ball so many times in big spots. It's a shame to see a talented fighter like that fall short time and time again. And it's not like he's just fallen short. He's been brutally put out at times. That fight against Derek Lewis, to hear him moaning on the octagon floor was concerning there. That was concerning. Oh, we have a fighter on the scales, my brothers. Yair Rodriguez. And he's made weight and he's running off of the scale. Okay. That is a good 146 for Yair Rodriguez. He's going on the list. 146 for Yair Rodriguez. Good work for him. Lots of energy. Of course, he's got a lot of energy early and often. Now, interestingly enough, in Brian Ortega's last fight against Yair Rodriguez, I was in the building for that fight. And in the lead up to that matchup, I just so happened to be sitting in the lower level section. And during the main card, actually, it was the Match Snell matchup. Yair's, some of his family, his cousins, and some folks wearing earpieces came and sat next to my wife and I, and they were sitting literally a row in front of us, and they were also sitting next to us too. So they took up almost 2 rows, a contingency of family and friends of Yair Rodriguez, and we were chatting away. They asked me, who do you have a bet on? I had a bet on Brian Ortega at the time. So they were asking what my rationale was for making that bet. And I was saying, well, I thought that this might happen or that might happen. And they warned me of the leg kicks and the kicking game of Yair Rodriguez, and that could potentially play a big factor in the fight. Now, look what happened in that matchup. You had the shoulder dislocation of Brian Ortega mid-fight, and just goes to show you there are no certainties in this game when you're watching these fights play out. Freak injuries do occur. That's why I always warn folks to don't put all your eggs in one basket. Everything in moderation. There's no such thing as an 8 or 10 unit wrist play. We live in a world where there are no certainties in this game. So proceed with cautions. But this matchup between Ortega and Rodriguez, it's happening a few years after the fact. The thing that I can't get beyond is that Ortega can win a fight at a moment's notice. One false move by Yair Rodriguez, and Ortega could lock up a multitude of submissions, and he could transition and chain submission attempts together, which is a beautiful thing to watch. He has that ability. We haven't seen it in years, but it's there. It's there. So interested to see how that one plays out. And I kind of wish I was down in Mexico City today. One of my plan is to pay homage to the Mexico City, the crowd and the tradition and the culture. I plan on ingesting an appropriate pre-fight meal in the lead up to tomorrow's event. Looking forward to that. And I can't wait. I'm licking my chops right now. Looking forward to the meal as we prepare. So we saw Francisco Prado come in. Now he's a young gun in the division. Reminds me of Marvin Vittori, the way he storms towards his opponent with reckless abandon. But that's what happens when you're a youngster in the game. And The Jamie Malarkey fight, I know he flew across the world and took that fight on short notice, but it showed me that he's got cojones, man. He's willing to take these risks. And look what he's doing here. Mexico City crowd, everybody's going to be pulling for Zellhuber in this matchup, but it should be a dangerous game to play for Zellhuber against a fighter who's closing the distance with big power. And if this fight does hit the mat, I do have concerns for Zellhuber there, but also the the striking acumen and the dog that's in Zellhuber should be put on display here too. I like Zellhuber to win in this matchup. I think the length is going to be significant here. I also believe that Zellhuber, his cardio in these fights, he can go, man. He's like a little energizer buddy out there pushing through. And look out for the counters of Zellhuber in this matchup. I'm also interested. It's funny, we're 36 minutes into the breakdown or so, into the weigh-ins. We haven't talked the elevation. I'll be interested to see how that affects folks. One thing I've watched, and I've been watching the sports since the early 90s, is that fighters do take the elevation into account. And one thing we have to be concerned about is them pacing themselves. So there's the potential for fighters not to want to gas themselves out, not push as hard during the fight because they know they're going to be going 15 minutes or 25 minutes. But then you get younger, naive fighters who have a lot of spunk and just will go balls to the wall. And, whatever will be, it is what it is. So we have to take that into consideration. So there's a lot of information to sift through here and fight IQ, etc. Really looking forward to this. Let's see. You're not sure how Mendonca is going to do considering he hasn't gotten used to the elevation. He got there recently and he went down a weight class to 125 pounds. We saw what happened when Nate Maness took on Mendonca and he sold out for the leg lock there. If you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel, that'd be a big help. Edgar Chairez is on the scale, my brothers. Whoa, hang on. I'm going back to it. Hang on. Edgar Chairez. He's quick on the scale here. He made weight. Hang on. We'll get back to the Mendonca talk in a second here. I'm getting a close look at Edgar Chairez on the scale. Hang on. Wait. 1 second. Did I hear 130? Hang on. I'm rewatching. Wait. There's speculation here. 131 pounds for Edgar Chairez. Oh my gosh. This fight is going to likely be pulled. Massive weight miss for Edgar Chairez. Massive weight miss for Edgar Chairez. Oh my gosh. Danny Lacerda, my heart goes out to you. Oh my gosh. It happened again. Oh my gosh. What can you say? I'm tweeting out weigh-in watch along party. Oh my god. This is bad news, folks, for Edgar Chairez. I am in shock here. But Mendonca, yeah, it should be interesting how he comes in with this down at 125 pounds or that weight class, coming off of that brutal loss where he showed horrible fight IQ. UFC, Mexico City, live, weigh in, watch along. I'm going to send out the link here to folks so they can join and chime in. Here we go. This is wild. Oh my gosh. What about Edgar Chairez? You had how long to prepare for this fight? What went wrong? What went wrong? Oh my gosh. This is this is a concern. This is a concern for many, many. Oh, man, it's always a circus with these guys, Professor Chaos. You are correct. Will you even bother breaking this fight down again if it gets rebooked? When does it end? We now have a second quadrilogy in history. Yes, I am in. I'm in awe here. I am in awe. It's not fair to the fighters too. Do you know how many fight camps these fighters have put in without getting paid? They've put in, this is three camps, and none of them have cashed a fight purse, right? No, their win bonus is not there. And oh my gosh, I think we've got another fighter coming to the scale here. Let's see. They're setting the scale. Ratner's pre-setting the scale for the next fighter to come up. Let's see what we've got. Oh my gosh. 131. Danny Zellhuber is coming up to the scale, my brothers. Here we go. He looks a little sucked out. He's got a lot of time to read. 156. Zellhuber, he's flexing on the scales. He's clapping his hands. He has some energy. And that is a fascinating matchup. You have the young guns. The cream will rise to the top tomorrow night. So Edgar Chairez, 131. My God. All right. So we're waiting on Brandon Royval, the main event fighter. We are waiting on Ricky Tercios, Raul Rosas Jr., Danny Lacerda. He might not even bother weighing in at this point, to be honest. And Luis Rodriguez. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fighters to go. All right. So we were talking about the Mendonca fight and how. Oh, Raul Rosas Jr. is making his way to the scales. Pardon the interruption here. Let's see what he looks like on the scales, how this is going. He's on the scales. Takes weight without issue. Looks solid up there. And Ricky Tercios is his opponent. Let's see what he is going up there. The chin on Raul Rosas Jr. Incredible. I'll be interested to see what happens when he ends up taking significant strikes on that chin. Now, Tercios may not be the one to do it because he's a bit of a spastic individual who just peppers strikes together. And we saw the Ayman Zahabi matchup. What the heck was going on there? Grunts galore. It felt like I was watching a Caitlin Chukagan fight. Crazy. So the Mendonca matchup, elevation, and he exhibited horrific fight IQ in that matchup. Yes, he has the length, the reach, the jiu-jitsu ability. What's he gonna do? I don't think we could trust anything out of Mendonca in this matchup. It's how can you trust him? I mean, he did against one of the Basharat brothers, looked solid out there and was able to give a Basharat brother a fight. And that sometimes is a tough thing to do. He really poured himself into that matchup, but then came out looking like a shell of himself against Nate Maness, who I believe Mendonca was a significant underdog in that matchup. Sorry, significant favorite in that matchup. I don't trust Mendonca, especially at this elevation, at this weight class, and what we talked about in the lead up to the last fight. Now, I'll never forget Tercios landing 10% of his 230 strike attempts A 1 in a million performance from Pretty Ricky. Wow. Now, I think you saw them say Lacerda wasn't going to continue cutting. Sick. That is sickening. Brian, good morning. Thank you for joining the stream today as we're taking a look at the live weigh-ins. Let's see, George, you have thoughts on a live bet if Tercios comes out hot in if Rosas comes out hot in round 1? I think it's on the table. I believe that Rosas Jr. is going to grown man Tercios, even though he's the younger fighter. I think that Tercios does not have the strength to compete from a grappling perspective. Yes, he's very spastic and he doesn't give up on himself, and he's going to try to stay in the fight, but I think that the back taking ability and that the clamps are going to be put on Tercios. And the crowd, I think, is going to be a factor. Yeah, though Rosas Jr. could potentially burn himself out. That is always a possibility. So I think that folks are really trying hard to go out of their way to fade a young, talented fighter who may not be a world beater, but look who they're matching Rosas Jr. up against. They're not matching him up against a world beater. And Tercios has been of a head case in previous matchups. I mean, the Zahabi matchup, he was at minus 220 betting favorite, Ricky Tercios, taking on Ayman Zahabi. And look what happened in that fight. That was one of the worst game plans the world has ever seen. So, and go back and watch the C-Rod matchup. Early on, Rosas Jr. was having massive success against C-Rod. C-Rod was only able to have his success after Rosas completely gassed himself out. And somehow, some way, that fight ended up going to a decision, right? So just something to consider. Something to consider, my brothers. Yeah. Let's see what we got here. We're still waiting on a few fighters. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate you. Let's see. We're waiting on Raw Dog. Raw Dog is leaving a lot of people hanging here as he's trying to make this cut down to 126, or else he's going to give up some of his purse. No, we're waiting on Brandon Royval. We are waiting on Ricky Tercios. And we are waiting on Danny Lacerda. Waiting on 3 fighters. Let's see. I'm going to tweet that out here. Let's see. Still waiting on 3 combatants. Hope everyone out there has enjoyed a nutritious breakfast. So we're waiting on Ricky Tercios, Brandon Royval, and Danny Lacerda. Let's see. Remember when who was that? Manel Kape had a great opportunity and he missed out, man. He missed out, Manel Kape. You look back, I think of fighters who've missed out on big opportunities, self-inflicted wounds, so to speak. One of them was Hamzat Chimaev taking on Nate Diaz. Imagine if Hamzat Chimaev made weight for the Nate Diaz fight. Oh my God. That was something that was ready to go. I wonder if there were some shenanigans going on there. He has the same amount of KOs and sub, I believe. Let's see. Not a popular take, but you believe that Torres by sub could be in there. Yeah. I could see Duncan leaving his neck out there. That's one thing Torres does have, is extremely long limbs. Same amount of KOs and subs. Interesting stuff. Any strong PFL and Bellator takes? I will say this. I'm looking for Aaron Pico to get some redemption tonight. This has been a long time coming for him, and he's taking on a Henry Corrales, and you don't see rematches where fighters can get it back. We do have one coming up, I believe UFC 299. You've got Chito Vera against Sean O'Malley. That's a rematch that should be an interesting one. It's funny how that fight the complexion of that fight has changed through the years. You don't see the visuals of Sean O'Malley getting pounded out on bottom. People's recollection of that were the leg kicks and that that O'Malley's leg gave out. But in reality, you had a TKO victory for Marlon Chito Vera. So I think Cheeto's live in this fight coming up here. Now, he doesn't have great striking defense, and his ability to close distance is a real problem. I was on O'Malley in the first iteration of that matchup, but given 5 rounds, if Vera is able to effectively close distance and stay conscious, which he's been able to do throughout his career, I think that eventually, over time, it's just a matter of time that Marlon Vera is going to get to Sean O'Malley. Now, do I like the betting number? I think that the odds are going to swell on the O'Malley side to a point where all right, they just announced Chirez is not going to continue cutting weight. 131. Interesting how it took that long to announce that. So I was saying that Marlon Vera, I think that even though he may not have the skills on the feet to to beat Sean O'Malley, that this will become a war of attrition, and that when the going gets tough, Marlon Vera is going to make this an interesting fight. And yes, O'Malley could win this fight by unanimous decision, but it's going to be on Marlon Vera to close the distance and push the pace and chip away at the legs of Sean O'Malley, which is going to be a difficult task. We've got some new comments here. Let's see. Yeah, I think Torres is underlisted. You saw a pic of him next to Joel Alvarez, and they're almost the same height. You can't trust UFC stats. Well, you can't trust Tapology stats either. And I'll point out one thing here, that the reach of Brandon Royval on Tapology is listed at 70.5, which is a longer reach than Brandon Moreno. And on UFC stats, you have Brandon Royval's reach listed at 68 inches. And on both sites for Brandon Moreno, you have the reach listed at 70 inches. So interesting facts. And the first time they fought, the height of Brandon Royval was coming into play. He was throwing out those long strikes and those knees up the middle, dangerous knees from Royval. But he doesn't really pay attention to what's coming back at him, Royval. He just throws things out there and see what sticks. And that's what led him to have, I think, what is it, a 45% striking defense? 45%, which means 55% of all strikes that are attempted by Brandon Royval's opponents are landing. That's a very, very high percentage. Let's see. George says those Vera odds make sense to you. You'd have him, or they make no sense to you. You'd have him as a slight favorite. Vera rarely shows damage and does a great job inflicting it. But go back to the Sandhagen fight. By the way, I think Sandhagen beats O'Malley. I think that Sandhagen has what it takes to defeat Sean O'Malley, and I want to see that fight. I want to see that fight now. I think that both of them are at a crossroads, And it's a shame that that division, the 135-pound division, is so darn talented that you have fighters who, um, man, they could make an entire bantamweight card. That's something I'd like to see them do. Now, the highest weight class at this card that we're watching today is 155 pounds, but I would love to see a UFC all bantamweight card. You agree that Sandy beats both? I agree. Yeah. See, and that's one situation where I don't think the tape lies. I think that what we see is what we get out of those fighters. Yeah, the Piotr Jan fight. Um, O'Malley was able to beat Piotr Jan, controversial decision. And Sandhagen lost to Piotr Jan, but styles make fights. Oh, I think we have another flyweight division. Okay. We have Luis Rodriguez headed to the scales. Let's see. Let's see. Luis Rodriguez taking to the scales Dennis Bondar's opponent. Oh, man, he doesn't look good. Let's see. 126. Okay, he made weight. The energy, the exuberance is on display. I take back what I initially said. He's a little fireball out there, and he was playing a little possum walking to the scales. Interesting, interesting. All right, so this is one situation where I think the Mexican crowd is gonna bring some of these fighters to life, and that's a beautiful thing about watching these fights uh, in nature. When you have thousands and thousands of fans cheering them on, that does push fighters to perform better. In the apex, you don't have that. You have the sound of yourself breathing and your corners and the sound of damage being inflicted. But when an entire 25,000 fans are pushing you, you see some Herculean efforts out there. And I think that that's what we're going to see tonight or tomorrow night. Let's see. I've always wanted to see that fight. Two high-level strikers with similar frames. I think it'd be a great fight. Yes. Can Curtis Blades put it together and make a title run in 2024? Do you like his chances versus Jelton? I think he gets the takedowns, but what does he do with them after he gets them? That's the problem here. I think that could be a recipe for disaster because Blades is his own worst enemy. We've seen it so many times in the past. Pavlovich and others. I don't even think he shot one takedown against Pavlovich. Doesn't fight to his strengths. Can't trust him. Sandhagen's got smoked by Aljo. Yeah, the submission was there. I was on Aljo in that spot. Suga finished Hum in 2 rounds. It'll be a close fight, but Sandhagen 100% can't go strike for strike with Suga. His counters will be too much for him to handle. Interesting, Chris. Well, I appreciate the contrast in dialogue here. That should be an interesting fight. Let's get it booked. Let's get it booked. I would be on, depending on the odds, I would probably be on the Sandhagen side because I think that a lot of folks out there are pulling for and are picking O'Malley in that matchup. Let's see. So let's see. We got Chires. We got Luis Rodriguez came in and made weight 126. Now we're just waiting on Danny Lacerda, Brandon Royval, and Ricky Tercios. Interesting. Brandon Royval, Ricky Tercios, Daniel Lacerda. Hope everybody's enjoying their Friday morning here as we march towards victory. UFC Mexico City headed our way tomorrow. Don't forget, 7 p.m. Eastern start time at Elevation. Check your local listings for details. And if you have any other comments in the comment section, please put them in there. We'll chat. We're at an hour and 4 minutes on the live stream here, just waiting for a few additional fighters to hit the scales. Thanks for subscribing to the channel here. We've got some fascinating matchups here. I personally, the Zellhuber Prado fight has been on my refrigerator. That's one that's been up there. Of course, Ortega Yair rematch, that's been on the fridge for a while. Can't go wrong with Royval versus Moreno. Now, we are waiting on these three fighters to hit the scale. So I'm concerned for Brandon Royval here. He was so sucked out last time out against Pantoja. And odds are he's going to be sucked out for this one. I'm going to get a third cup of coffee, my brothers. Hang on one second. We're going with cup of coffee number 3. Post some questions in the chat box. I'll come and respond to them. We'll chat some fights. We have one here. Guy Fieri says, I think Corey's last fight against Font, plus the aging of the Jan versus, plus the TJ losses have soured people on him. Still very gifted, sound, and tricky striker. I agree. I agree with you. I'll be back. 1 second. Still waiting on 3 fighters. Okay. It appears as though we're still waiting. We are still waiting on additional fighters here. I'm going to check to see if any new information has come to light. Here's one. Here's a good question. If Usman stays at 185, who'd you like to see him fight next? Now, he's the type of fighter who will only fight the best fighters in the division. So I don't expect him to be fighting a lower caliber fighter. I'd like to see, if he fights at 185, I'd like to see him take on Whitaker. That'd be a great fight. Book that fight. Robert Whitaker versus Kamaru Usman. All right, let's see. We are waiting. We're waiting on Brandon Royval, Ricky Turcios. Let me see. And what's happening with Lacerda here? 127. He missed by a pound. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Let me see here. Oh my gosh. Danny Lacerda. Come on now, my brother. Has the fight been officially pulled? Can someone post that in the comment section here? Let's see. There we go. You thought TJ? I thought that Sandhagen beat TJ as well. I thought you saw Imavov was calling out Usman. I don't like that fight for Imavov. Be interesting to see that. I'm looking to see what's going on with the Edgar Chairez fight. Makayev versus Perez next week has closer odds than I expected, given Perez's inconsistencies and lengthy time off. Oh, man, I agree. George, Alex Perez, he's got to be up at bantamweight at this stage in his career. This is a real problem. This is a real problem for Alex Perez. He's basically wasted away the prime of his career. Very talented fighter, someone who I've made a lot of money off of from a betting perspective. All right, Edgar Chairez. What is going on, bro? Oh my God. Oh, my heart goes out to Danny Lacerda and Edgar Chairez. Both got, what are these guys? 127 for Lacerda and 131 for Chirez. Sickening. Sickening. Is this some sort of sick joke? Is that what I'm supposed to believe? Why are these fighters, knowing they have weeks and months to prepare for this fight, why are they not coming in ready to make weight, or even make weight where they could compete? They typically aren't going to let you fight at 125 pounds when you come in at 131. When you miss the weight class by so many pounds. Oh my goodness. Goodness gracious. Come on now. You're better than that. Edgar Chairez and Danny Lacerda. They should make it a catch weight at this point. Yeah, I agree. Now, the interesting Makayev versus Perez next week. It's, you know what bothers me? The fighters who've had success against Muhammad Makayev are not high-level caliber fighters. And when we saw Malcolm Gordon have success against Makayev, we've seen many fighters have success against Makayev. And then somehow somebody is able to turn it on late in the fight. And he will fight hard for your money. He's a fighter who we've seen his leg get basically torn off, and he's stayed in the fight. But he's been put in some really tough spots. And if it wasn't for these comeback victories, Makayev could be in a really rough spot here. But he doesn't give up on himself, and you love to see that. Now, Alex Perez, last time I heard, he had a seizure while attempting to make weight for the fight against Manel Kape. I was on Manel Kape last time out versus Alex Perez. That fight didn't happen. That was very frustrating. Beat, as they say. Let's see if they do make a catch weight for the Lacerda-Chairez matchup. I'm looking here. By the way, thanks to everybody for sticking around for this weigh-in watch-along. I appreciate it. This is a labor of love. Otherwise, I'd be watching the weigh-ins most Fridays. Ha ha ha. Let's see. So if the fight stays on, somehow, do they get a portion of each other's purse? Do they just give it to the commission? That's a good question. Yeah, let's figure it out. How do you feel about Petrino versus Pedro next week? Ah, man. It's interesting. Tyson Pedro is a dangerous fighter. He's a fighter who's going to strike. His striking acumen solid. He does fight with some dangerous, slick jiu-jitsu, but he's a fighter, if things don't go his way. And what softball matchups Tyson Pedro's had throughout his career. This isn't a softball matchup against Vitor Petrino. Vitor Petrino's a plodding, Herculean, Yoel Romero-esque fighter who's going to, like a bowling ball, come out and rock his opponent. And he could be outstruck significantly, but it only takes one punch for Petrino to put someone's lights out. And I was on Petrino. It was my heaviest bet of the year. I think I risked 3.5 units. That was the most I've risked in all of 2023, and ended up cashing against Modestas Bukauskas. And I thought that was a solid spot. Now, Tyson Pedro is a much more dangerous fighter than Modestas Bukauskas, even though it's funny how Bukauskas has a victory over Tyson Pedro. So it's interesting matchmaking that they've done there. But I'm going to be picking Petrino. I think that if you're playing inside the distance number, you get a much better line than playing the money line on Petrino, who opened at, I think, minus 250 or so. Good question. Let's see. Fight being at the apex make me think Makayev is able to get that wrestling game going for 15 minutes. True. Speaking of Yoel, any thoughts on Yoel versus Santos? I can't figure out a take on that one. It will probably just be a fight fan rather than place any bets on it. That's a good question. I'm leaning towards Yoel in that matchup, despite the old age. Now, Thiago Santos, the PEDs may be in play here for that matchup in Saudi Arabia. And Thiago Santos, his knees have been busted up. He left the UFC, and Romero's, I believe he's got to be in his mid 40s now. So what happens in that matchup? I think that is a bit of a train wreck, that fight. And Yoel Romero, he takes his time and he wades and waits in the pocket for his opportunity. So I'm leaning towards Yoel, and I think he's an underdog in that fight. Now, Professor Chaos, you say Romero decision equals no action at pick 'em odds on Bet Online. You like that one? Interesting. Looks like someone's about to get on the mic here shortly. People are gathering towards the scales. Ratner's adjusting the scales. Here comes Brandon Royval. Moment of truth has arrived. 126. 126 for Brandon Royval. Made the weight, Brandon Royval. All right. Looks very sucked out. But hey, that happens on short notice here when you're trying to make flyweight. So props to Brandon Royval for being a professional here at 126 pounds. And he is going to be fighting Brandon Moreno in tomorrow's main event of the evening. I am stoked for that fight. Looking forward to that one. Can't wait. Let's see. You are excited for the debut. Oh, you feel bad for Parisian. Yeah, Parisian, man. Parisian, it's interesting. I've seen folks on my timeline who are betting Parisian, and I don't know. I mean, I guess you're fading the debut of a heavyweight fighter who doesn't necessarily have the best wrestling credentials, and Parisian, that is his path to victory here. Also just being a savvy veteran, but I think that there are other spots on that card to put your hard-earned money, and I'm going to be avoiding that fight. The real winner of Yoel Santos are the pharmacists. Yes, I agree. The fountain of youth is a real thing. So we're waiting on Ricky Turcios, right? That's our only fighter we're waiting on. What could have gone wrong with Ricky Turcios? Let's double check here and just make sure we didn't miss him hitting the scales. 1 second. Ricky Turcios. Hope everybody's having a great Friday morning. Oh, he's the only fighter left to weigh in, Ricky Turcios. That's not a good look for Ricky Turcios, the final fighter to weigh in. Not a good look, especially if you're going to weaponize your cardio to come in as the last fighter to the scale here. That's another fighter. I'm seeing a lot of people on my timeline are picking Ricky Turcios to beat Raul Rosas. Interesting. That dude is a massive heavyweight with a legitimate striking background. I think he'll be another relatively quick KO. I agree. Against Parisian, let's take a look at that fight doesn't go the distance number. Hey, Mike, been following your content for over a year now. I love watching your breakdowns every Saturday morning. Thank you. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. This is a live weigh-in accompaniment, and today we're just observing the fighters on the scales. We're having a casual chat about what we see and also sharing nuggets of information throughout the course of this live stream. I appreciate everybody tuning in. It's not every Friday morning that I have Friday mornings dedicate to a live stream. So this is I'm grateful for this opportunity. Let's see. We've got a question for you. You just wanted to ask how you would advise someone to make good returns with little money. I usually play about $20 each night, and I always end up doing a 6-fight parlay, if not 9. Oof. Parlays. I'm not a fan of parlays. I've never been a fan of parlays. I think that that's a quick way to lose money. And if you could go out there and hunt for, even if you're laying small amounts of money, if you hunt for the best line available in a spot where you believe the fighter has a significant edge and you're getting a good number on it, lock in that number. Lock in that number. And you have to have a well-established process where you understand implied probability and how everything works. And that comes through experience. So if you, there is no quick fix. There is no good returns with little money unless you are comfortable chipping away time over time. Like Ryan says, small winnings compound into big winnings over time. So chip away, pick your spots, and you have to exhibit patience. You have to, nice number you got there. You have to exhibit patience. And unfortunately, a lot of gamblers out there, they want instant gratification. They want to hit these big parlays and take big risks early because they see the payout so high. But the reality is, I mean, I make what, like 3 to 5 parlays the entire year in 2023. I'm not a person who parlays folks on a regular basis. I don't necessarily believe in them. I think that if you risk a certain amount and get the best number available across multiple books, and then you find another play and you find a great number at a book, lock those numbers in separately. The chances of you locking in the best line available at the same book to lock in a parlay is very slim. So when it does happen, I still am not a fan of parlays, to be honest. Never been, never will be. It's a way of losing money, and I have an open mind too. So, granted, yes, it will increase your ROI, but also you're taking big chances by asking 2 events or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 or 13 or 14 things to happen for you to cash. And I prefer to bank on one thing happening and then moving on and taking my winnings to the next event. Let's see. All right. So we are still waiting on Ricky Tercios. Is he ever going to weigh in? Or is that fight getting pulled? Let's see. I'm going to see if there's any updated information regarding Ricky Tercios. Let's see. If you have any other questions or concerns, please put them in the comments section. Otherwise, I'll be seeing you tomorrow for the Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show. Let's see. 30 minutes remaining. Tercios is the lone fighter yet to weigh in. Wow. And he's a guy who is going to drain himself to make weight. So, Tercios is working hard to make this weight. Let's see. Here we go. Any favorite locks for the next few weeks? Let's see. One free play I put out there for, I believe it's the UFC 300 card. Let's see. Or is it UFC 299? Macy Barber taking on Caitlin Chukagian. She's a fighter who I locked in at a solid price. And the key in that matchup, though, is going to be a lot of fighters have trouble closing distance on Chukagian. She's got long limbs. She makes the kia sounds, the tennis sounds. And at this stage in the game, as Chukagian nears 40 years of age, you watch the Calvillo fight, and that's a concern. Calvillo was not able to close distance. I thought Calvillo had the tools to beat Chukagian, was not able to even close distance on her. We've seen Calvillo basically. I don't even know if she's still with the promotion. But Barber is like a bull in a china shop in there, and she's going to go for it. Win or lose, she's going to go for it. And at some point, I think that Barber's going to get to Kagan and hurt her in that matchup and walk away victorious. Let's see. Have you been approached by any of the bigger sports betting channels to be their MMA guy? Most of them suck compared to your breakdown show. Thank you. Well, I've done for a number of years. I was working with our friends at MMA Oddsbreaker, still on great terms with them. I decided to branch out and do my own thing on my own YouTube channel here. I appreciate everybody who works over there, and Nick Kalikas, etc. Great guys. So I appreciate them. And I've been investing in myself and trying to really carve my own path here. So I appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you for the compliments. All right, let's see. You've got you're doing more straight picks. Yes. Yeah. Good. Rami, good luck. Calvillo just got booked. Her and Sam Alvey know where the bodies are buried. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I appreciate you. That's one of the reasons my my YouTube channel has been growing on its own here, and rather slowly, I might add. But the key is investing in myself and putting out quality content on a regular basis. That's my goal here, and I'm going to continue to do so, one event at a time, one fight at a time, and it's a labor of love. This is a cathartic experience to share my thoughts on the air. So I appreciate your support throughout this process. Let's talk some future fights. I think that you're looking at it's funny how the Johnny Eblen fight against Impa Kasanganay's kind of manifested this, and also he hasn't fought the greatest strength of competition, but Johnny Eblen, I believe, could walk right in there and take out Dricus du Plessis. I know that's a hot take, but I do believe that Eblen has what it takes to be the best middleweight in the world. I think he is actually right now, and odds seem to be coming in a little bit here, but I'm looking. He opened at -162 at DraftKings. That's wild. Now he's out over -400. I'm interested in the Jason Jackson Ray Cooper fight. That fight went and is now a catch weight at 182. Apparently, Ray Cooper has no business being up at middleweight. We saw against Brunson last time out how horrible he looked, and I know there was contract situations that were going on there, but what the heck happened to him? I know what happened. He made all that money, made the millions, right? And then probably got the fat cat syndrome where he's sleeping in silk sheets, and what's the motivation at that point? But you have a Cooper who's taking on Jason Jackson, and Jackson, solid fighter, uses his length well. He's been getting better and better and better in his early 30s. He's got to watch out for those hooks and that killer instinct of Ray Cooper III. But give me Jason Jackson in that match, and that line's got nuts. At one point, he was in the -400s. Now he's up to -650. Oh, let's see. Clay Collard, that's going to be an interesting fight against AJ McKee. Collard, you have to wonder how much wind has been taken out of his sails in that, coming off of the $1 million fight. And then let's take a look. Let's keep looking here. Let's look at some future cards here. Let's see. Matt Schnell. I gotta say, I watched Matt Schnell fight. He has so many tools, man. He has so many tools. He's a great fighter, but his chin has given out on him so many times. Matt Schnell. My heart goes out to him, man. You see how talented he is. Cooper took the fight on short notice. Interesting. So that's why Jason Jackson is a -650 betting favorite. By the way, thanks for everybody tuning in today as we wait for Ricky Tercios to hit the scales. He's our lone fighter. We've been here for all of the fighters to weigh in, and we are just waiting for Ricky. Get to the scales, Ricky. Let's make this fight official. In the meantime, let's talk let's talk next week's UFC event, or the March 2nd event. We have Javid Basharat taking on Ayman Zahabi. That's an interesting fight. I saw Basharat could have been had for minus 325 for some time, and his line's blown out to minus 500 at some books. Zahabi, who has a win over Ricky Tercios here, and he's in his late 30s. Very similar fighters as far as striking goes. Both lanky fighters. I like Basharat in that matchup. Looking forward to him competing. It's a shame the Joel Alvarez matchup against Ludovic Klein got pulled. And then let's see. I'm surprised Jamie Pickett's still with the promotion. That's interesting also. Let's take a look into the future here. The March 6th card, or March 9th card. Let's see. We talked. Oh, how about Kevin Holland taking on Michael Venom Page? Michael Venom Page coming in with a lot of hype in his late 30s, and we've seen Kevin Holland drop the ball against strikers before. We know that Kevin Holland has a much better ground game than Michael Venom Page, but can he implement it here, and can he close distance and get this fight to the mat? He came up short against Jack Della Maddalena last time out. Yeah, look at this. You're right. Two men known for their ballyhoo, Kevin Holland and Michael Venom Page. Yes, I agree. Now, I think that Kevin Holland likely walks away with the victory in that matchup, but I want to advise folks to proceed with caution. George says JDM seems like he has all the tools to deal with an aging Burns. People are they're overvaluing JDM. Close fight with Haifez where he had to cut weight twice in 7 days. Well, I don't think that JDM has an answer if he's placed on his back against Gilbert Burns, but I don't trust Gilbert Burns' chin against Jack Della. So, and also Burns is getting up there, man. I think what is he, 37, 38 years of age? Interesting. And look at the March 16th card here. Danny Silva against Josh Cooleybow. That should be a fascinating scrap. Kennedy Zechukwu, who does not move his head off the center line, is fighting OSP. OSP somehow still with the promotion. I saw Brad Riddell pulled out of his fight against Thiago Moises. So interested to see who Moises gets in a matchup there. I'll tell you what, folks. Ricky's dragging us out here for a while. He's making us wait and work. So we'll close out the stream. Does RDA stand a chance against Gamrot? Excellent question. I was thinking that myself. RDA, the mileage is starting to really, really wear on him. At some point, all humans, no one outruns Father Time. I have concerns. For RDA. He's going to have to land something heavy on Gamrot, because Gamrot, we saw against Dariush and others, he's going to go for it, and he's going to be there at the finish line. That Hooker fight on, or the Jalen Turner fight on short notice, I was impressed, even though he could have taken the loss there. How do you feel about same game parlays? Not a fan of them. I got to be honest. It may be a boring approach, but I've had success just sticking to either straight money line plays or certain props. But that's an interesting fight. RDA against Gamrot. I agree. And the line's a little wide. You got to look around, but I think I'm going to be picking Gamrot to win that fight. Although RDA is one of my favorite fighters of all time. So thanks everybody for tuning in today. Remember to go get what's yours. Have a phenomenal rest of your weigh-in experience. And Ricky, come on, get to the scale, Ricky. We need you to make weight here. Let's go. Have a great day, folks. Thanks for your time.